Honorable Prime Minister also announced that the next summit will be in India. Paris, they called it Action Summit. We are looking at calling our summit as the AI Impact Summit. It will be held on 19th and 20th of February.
Hi, I'm Jhalak.
Hi, I'm Shashank.
And welcome to the CCG Tech Podcast. We're very excited to have Mr. Abhishek Singh join us today. He's Additional Secretary MeitY, as well as CEO of the IndiaAI Mission. Thank you for making time for this conversation. So if you could just very briefly tell us about your journey in the AI space and what you're finding most exciting about it today.
Of course, I've been in the digital space for quite some time. I've been this is my second assignment with Ministry of Electronics and IT, almost 5 years plus, and earlier also, in fact, 2009 to 12, I was a director in this ministry and responsible for Digital India projects like Common Service Centers, e-District, Aadhaar. It was just coming up during that point of time. I've seen Digital India expand and grow in the last few years, and especially in the present role. In fact, once we got the approval of the IndiaAI Mission in last year, 7th of March 2024, and I was also interested with the responsibility of the IndiaAI Mission. The mandate and the scope was to ensure that we are able to execute all the action items required as per the cabinet approval, and to ensure that we are able to address all the needs of India's AI ecosystem. The cabinet approval itself came after an extensive round of discussions, deliberations with all stakeholders, when we interacted with researchers, when we interacted with startups, industry, not-for-profits, and tried to identify what India can do to gain leadership in the field of AI. So as you know, after the gaps were identified, we came out with a 7-pillared approach towards implementation of AI mission, which included getting compute available, which included building a datasets platform. It also included providing funding support for a foundation model, providing support for skilling opportunities, taking up application development, then providing support to startups, and also building tools for safe and trustworthy AI. So all these 7 pillars have been very exciting, and we have moved quite ahead in each one of the pillars. But what I see as a huge potential in the days to come is the advancement that we can make in building AI applications, which can be a layer over the digital public infrastructure that we have built, in a way that DPI has been enabling services, like it's enabling financial inclusion, it's enabling health services, enabling education services. But with the layer of AI, all these services which we have built over the last few years in Digital India are becoming more accessible through voice, accessible in all Indian languages, and with the Gen AI tools, ultimately it will empower the people who are not yet connected on the internet. So that the Indian foundation model trained on Indian datasets and the application development potential that we are working on excites the most about the IndiaAI mission.
So we've seen some really interesting applications being developed in the domain of health, agriculture, chatbots. How do you think we can really leverage AI for social good and get average citizens to use AI technology to benefit their lives?
See, one major hardship which citizens face is with regard to access to basic information. With regard to, for example, if a farmer wants to know where he can get fertilizers, where he can get seeds, or whether he can get agri advisories, very often he struggles. We have built portals like eNAM, PM Kisan and all, wherein this information is available. But the challenge that a farmer finds is to go to a website, enter the URL, do a search, or download an app, or navigate a CAPTCHA. That's still quite challenging for a farmer. What he will want to do is that if can he query an app or talk to, just like we talk to Alexa or Siri, can he give a voice command with regard to the information that he's seeking and get a reply back in his mother tongue? And what we have seen that today's technologies, with today's NLP technologies, today's Gen AI technologies, it is possible. And then what we did when we were able to provide this kind of interface for accessing information, we also felt that it can also work on a feature phone with which a farmer can call a toll-free number and seek the same information. So back-end, all my technology works, but the farmer is empowered. He is not required to go to any URL. He is not required to do any keyboard entry. He just gives his query in the way he wants, the way he speaks, and gets back the query in his mother tongue. So that's the very, very empowering. And that's being enabled through the application that we are building in the in the AI space. And once these kind of applications are possible to be built in agriculture, for example, the similar applications are possible in almost all sectors. Say, for example, healthcare. We do have cases in which children die of diarrhea. So imagine women in a rural area in Jharkhand or Manipur wanting to find out what she should do if her child is suffering from basic ailment like diarrhea, and she doesn't have a health specialty health center or a health specialist who can give her advice. She can't go to a doctor because of distances, the non-availability of facilities, or just the cost involved. But if she could call up a toll-free number, or if she could ask an app what she should do in her mother tongue and get a reply back, trusted reply, then that can really, really help. Similarly, if we are able to empower different people with basic information, and more importantly, everybody in the supply chain, if we accessing this information through the AI tools, they become more productive. It will result in a lot of economic benefits. For example, farmers will be able to save on input costs, save water, get the maximum price for their output. Small businesses can benefit from accurate information with regard to what they should be doing. MSMEs can benefit, and if people across start becoming more productive, it will ultimately a big add-on to the economy. So what I see is that with the development of applications in critical sectors will ultimately solve the challenge of asymmetry of information that results in all kinds of problems, and number two, make everybody in the ecosystem more productive. It will lead to increase in per capita incomes, and ultimately it will result in we becoming a developed economy.
So you've talked at various instances about the aim of limiting user harm without impacting innovation. And, if you take, for instance, health-related chatbots or, voice bots, one of the things is what kind of information are they giving out, right? For instance, it's illegal to pinpoint what is the sex of a child of a fetus before they're born, and you don't want people to be able to game a bot to be able to access that kind of information. So we need to develop harm taxonomies, benchmarks, conduct evaluations of these systems, which links to the broader trust and safety sort of pillar of the India AI mission that you mentioned earlier. So how are we going to go about this? Like, what institution is going to do this? Is it the AI Safety Institute that the ministry has announced? How do you envision creating this ecosystem?
See, ultimately, as you rightly said, our approach to AI regulation has been to promote innovation and restrict user harm. And what we are trying to do is that to ensure that we are able to build tools and we are able to build products with which we can test such AI solutions. For example, one key challenge that AI applications face is about bias. So how do we mitigate biases in the AI applications? Can we test such models on such parameters which are there? Then similarly, if suppose a model has been trained on data sets which might not be accurate, can we take up machine learning? Can we can we develop tools which can help detect deep fakes? Can we watermark AI generated content? Can we build tools which can help in privacy enhancing technologies? Or the example that you gave, can we test models, especially through red teaming exercises, that how do they respond, especially for matters which might be legal in some countries but illegal here, so that it's context specific. Like, have we trained them on Indian laws? So we are working through the AI Safety Institute with a network of our partners, academic institutions, not-for-profits, private companies, for developing such tools which can help in testing AI applications and models, whether they conform to the principles of responsible and ethical AI, whether they are violating any laws, and to stress test them, to take up red teaming exercises, giving prompts in various languages and try to see how it responds. And these tools will be available ultimately on the AI Coach platform, and these will ensure that to the extent possible we'll be able to regulate applications which might result in user harm.
So globally, we've seen the first wave of setting up of AI safety institutes over the last few years. India just earlier this year announced the creation of an AI safety institute. What lessons do you think India should draw from, the experience of the first wave of these institutes, and how should we be approaching and thinking about leveraging the safety institute that the ministry is setting up?
See, what we have seen is that what UK has done, what US has done, what Japan has done, when they have set up their safety institutes, they have kind of these safety institutes have helped create a platform which brings together researchers and stakeholders who are committed to the cause of safe and trusted AI. So that model is something that we are also kind of replicating, and we do have researchers across our academic institutions, across our startups, and across our not-for-profits, and they are also working on these tools. So funding such initiatives through the India AI mission and bringing them all the solutions which are being developed, bringing them to a AI coach and a common platform so that the entire stakeholder can benefit from them. So that's the thing which many countries have done, which we are leveraging, and we do believe that having such tools customized for Indian context will really help here. And the example, the AI Safety Institute, ultimately it can become like the safety institute. We can even service the countries of the global south. So we are going a little bit beyond what the UK and the American safety institutes have done, so that we are able to build up a much more robust network of researchers working in this field. Yeah, and of course, we will leverage the partnerships with the global institutions for cross country sharing.
I think, sir, you mentioned something very important about how India can be a leader in various mechanisms. So my next question to you is, how do you think AI can be democratized and taken to low and middle income countries, especially in the global south? What can India do to collaborate with other countries and taking on from successes? So you were talking about like DPI, and DPI has become, the world is looking at us and we're helping a lot of other countries. So the question of democratizing AI, so what are your thoughts on that?
See, like our objective has been to ensure that whatever benefits we have with technology in India should be shared with the larger global community. In fact, at the G20, one of the outcomes of the G20 was that we will set up a global DPI repository, which will kind of house all DPI solutions across the world. And India is the major contributor to that. That's being made available globally. When it comes to AI, we have always, when we were the chair of GPA last year, we always kind of advocated democratization, enabling access to compute, enabling access to data sets, enabling access to algorithms and expertise. So we had been one of the themes that we pushed in GPA was collaborative AI for global partnerships. So that theme continues when we are building our own AI ecosystem. And it also started within India also, like we wanted to ensure that the researchers and startups in India get access to compute, democratize access to compute. The limited compute was available, so under our model, in fact, the cabinet note required us to get only 10,000 GPUs, but we came up with a model in which we empaneled service providers who could provide GPUs for developing applications. In the first round of empanelment that we did, we got almost 14,000 GPUs, and the second round again we got 15,000 GPUs. So as of now, we have almost 30,000 GPUs that are available for our ecosystem. And I do hope that by next month, we will have another 15,000 available. And we'll reach around 50,000 GPUs available for Indian ecosystem. That democratizing access within India. And the countries of Global South, many of them have expressed a desire that can they also access the infrastructure that India is building. So we can definitely, in consultation with Ministry of External Affairs, we can work on that. The second thing is that the AI application that we are building in various domains, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's agriculture, whether it's logistics, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's NLP, many of these applications will find use outside India also. Like, for example, if there's an AI application to diagnose breast cancer or diagnose tuberculosis, there will be users outside India also. And any model which is trained on Indian data sets, because just because the sheer size of our country and the volume of data sets that's there, will have hopefully greater accuracy and will have replicability. So we are planning to set up an AI repository of applications that will be available, which is similar to the repository of DPIs, which is available to the global community. Then similarly, the same principle is being followed for building tools for safe and trusted AI also. So all these tools that I spoke about earlier will also become part of the offering that we have to the global south. So the countries of the global south who are interested in leveraging what we have done, they will have an opportunity to do so.
So on various occasions, you've talked about developing guardrails and principles for responsible AI development. Prime Minister, has talked about harmonization of AI approaches globally. What do you see as the global approach to governance of AI, and where do you see India's approach fitting in? India really championed GPI and now it's been merged with the OECD. So what role are institutions like these also playing in bridging the global governance conversation of AI and then the domestic approach to governance of AI?
So, like when we talk of governance of AI, we have to realize that this is a technology which is necessarily global. A country cannot think of just looking at governance of AI in isolation. I cannot think of that I will regulate AI without looking at what's happening globally. Because if you look at AI technology, currently it's the core of the technology is there with only a few countries and a few companies. It's not yet democratized. So most models that we use are developed in very few geographies. And then if you look at applications which are developed by inferencing on the models, they are developed in some other geography, many of the applications that we use. And end users are in other geography. So you will have to kind of necessarily have an approach that the governance is global and the stakeholders across countries are involved. Number two, what we have advocated is that when you have to develop a global governance forum, we'll have to look at the common minimum threshold that will work with all countries. So whether it was at GPay or whether it was at the Bletchley Summit or whether it was at the summits that followed up in Korea and the Action Summit in Paris, we have been advocating for that. Then similarly, the UN High Level Advisory Body on AI, which was also set up to look into that. So there we suggested that any governance forum will have to be necessarily global and it will have to follow a techno-legal approach for governance. Within India, we set up a task force advisory group under Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister, and that group came out with the guidelines for India's governance forum. And that guidelines also take, while it writes a lot on the consent framework and on the DPI governance forum that we developed, but it also kind of synergizes with the global discourse that is happening. So that way, we are quite aligned with what is being discussed globally. Of course, we are not advocating the EU model of governance, wherein they came up with an act. So we do believe that current level of development of AI does not necessarily warrant an act, and existing legal provisions are sufficient to regulate AI development. And US has lately aligned themselves to this approach. Even the discussions in the Bletchley Summit has now progressed towards what India was advocating right from the beginning. Bletchley overhyped safety and security aspects. It got watered down a little bit in Korea when they said safety and innovation. Even the branding of the summit was safety and innovation. And by the time we came to Paris, they called it Action Summit, and they included themes which also included issues like future of work, issues like development, building a foundation for developing applications, providing access to compute. So these are issues which India was always advocating, and the world has also come around doing that. The US approach is also quite now, of course, the US also when came up with the executive order of 2023, that was like much more driven by safety and security concerns, where they wanted companies to come out with voluntary disclosures and all, take up voluntary commitments. So now I do believe that our approach towards fine touch regulation, towards regulating only things that can result in user harm, is something that the rest of the world has also come around to. And we do believe that we'll continue in this track in order to ensure that a common global governance framework is developed.
So when we're talking about user harm, you mentioned, for instance, that there may be existing legislation in India that would be relevant, and perhaps there may be other specific pieces that we need to think about. So what are some of the existing pieces of legislation you think would be relevant and come in to address user harm? In the context of AI.
We do have provisions. Like the biggest challenge that most democracies are facing with AI is deepfakes. Like deepfakes can impact elections, deepfakes can result in communal and caste violence, especially in a country like India with so much of diversity. Deepfakes can be used for child sexual abuse, for bullying, for harassment. So it is not that these provisions are not there in the law. The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and the erstwhile IPC had provisions to deal with that. It had provisions for cheating, it had provisions for forgery, it had provisions for causing harm by altering information in any form. Photoshop has been there for around. So the legal provisions, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, then the erstwhile IPC are there. Then the legal provisions under the IT Act, The IT Act also defines such crimes. We have also came out with the IT intermediary rules, which also classified in what cases social media platforms and intermediaries will need to take down content of any kind if it is resulting in any user harm. So any AI generated content is ultimately the outcome is the user harm. So there we can regulate. Similarly, the AI applications which are violative of a law, ultimately the substantive law will govern. Like the example that you gave, for example, if prenatal sex determination is done by using AI tools, then that prenatal sex determination is a offense under a existing law. So whether you do it, whether a doctor uses a ultrasound machine and tells that, or whether you use an AI tool for telling that, the offense will be governed by the law that declares it as an offense. So it's the existing provisions are sufficient. But if we go beyond the current state of development of AI, suppose we go to artificial general intelligence, in which we have robots and we have they deciding and they developing applications, then maybe we'll need to think of a law which will define whether a robot is also an individual, for which we need a law where the development of AI is not being done by a human, but it's been done by a machine which might have been developed by a human at some point of time. So those scenarios, we do believe that is yet to arrive, and we do believe that if we over-regulate at this stage, it will be counterproductive for our Indian companies and Indian startups.
There's been a lot of conversation around the data harms that individuals could face from AI systems. And what is your point of view on whether on the extent to which the Data Protection Act that we have in India would cover sort of harms arising from the AI context?
See, like personal data DPDP Act, which was passed by the Parliament 2023, and the rules which are to be notified, they cover all aspects of personal data, and it rides on the consent framework. Like a citizen, the data principal will have the right to have complete control over his data. He will give, with his consent, the right to process, the right to use that data for a definite purpose, for a finite duration, and those rights of a data principal is well defined. So any AI development which deals with personal data will have to conform with that. But most AI development happens at primarily by non-personal data, with use of non-personal data or data at an aggregate level. But wherever there is an element of personal data involved, AI applications and data sets do need to conform to anonymization tools, use privacy protection tools in order to ensure that personal attributes of any data set that might be used by building an AI model are removed when that model is deployed. Because if you don't do, then you might come under the purview of the DPDP Act, and DPDP Act has very stringent penalties for any use of personal data without the consent of the data principal.
So, for instance, the Chris Gopalakrishnan Non-Personal Data Committee talked about, that even anonymized and de-identified data sets, with the use of AI tools, you can sort of extract personal data, which could be harmful for individuals. So, is there sort of any thinking on how to handle sort of this issue that could emerge, where out of non-personal data sets also there could be group privacy harms, individual harms that may arise?
Anybody who indulges in that will be committing a crime as per the provision of DPDP Act. So he will come to that. So why we make rules which are common for everyone, like legal provisions are there. And the law does say that stealing or driving rashly is a crime. But we do still have people who do that. It's not that people won't do. There would be violations, and for violations only we have penalties. So whenever such an instance happens, it's not that just because we have notified a law and just we have said that everything will be prevented. Murder is a crime. Murder still happens. Now people are hanged for that. So violations will happen, but as long as the provisions for punishing those who are violating the law are there, and the law enforcement mechanism and regulatory mechanisms are there, then we will be able to deal with it. We can only hope that the deterrence for people to do that, the threshold, like the penalty that is there for violation of DPDP Act, is almost 250 crores. So the deterrence will ensure that people don't indulge in any such behavior. It's not that it cannot be done. People can pull out personal data in spite of we saying it should not be done, or in spite of we prohibiting by law.
Sir, something you mentioned before, and a lot of scholarship recently done on India has also started to show that we don't currently have large data sets that are reliable, especially from India. High quality data sets, for example, if you use a AI system in healthcare, if we don't have representative data from Indian ethnicity, and if we're sort of using models based on data from the US or from other countries, it's not going to be as accurate as when we have data from Indians. And this comes to the question of how is the government thinking on creating Indian data sets that can sort of solve some of these challenges and contextualize AI solutions to Indians?
See, like for example, we have building datasets, Indian datasets, and then using those datasets for building AI models and applications has been a very, very important part of the India AI mission. One of the key pillars of India AI mission is AI Kosh, the India Datasets platform, and that datasets platform was launched on 6th of March. It has currently around 358 datasets, and as we speak, datasets are being added. So there is a problem of not having sufficient Indian datasets in all languages, and more importantly, not having sufficient datasets in many of Indian languages. So the AI Kosh is working with all government departments to ensure that we are able to populate Indian datasets. Like we are working with AIMS to get access to their X-ray datasets which are annotated. We are working with say E-Sanjeevani portal, wherein the patient to doctor conversations which are happens in real time, those datasets are available. We are working with Prasar Bharati to get datasets from All India Radio and Doordarshan, which can be used for training models in all languages. We are signed an MOU with the Parliament of India, when all parliamentary debates right from 1950 are made available in digital format, and those datasets which are annotated can be used for training datasets. So yes, we do need to augment the datasets we have. Efforts are ongoing, and that will only ensure that we are able to build a truly Indian foundation model.
So it's very exciting that India is hosting the next AI summit early next year. How should we continue to build on the conversation that happened in Paris in February this year?
Paris summit was co-hosted by India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji had gone along with President Macron, and they laid down the vision for how AI governance will work out, how we'll work together with the global community for building safe, trustworthy AI. So, and our Honorable Prime Minister also announced that the next summit will be in India. Paris, they called it Action Summit. We are looking at calling our summit as the AI Impact Summit. It will be held on 19th and 20th of February, and it will cut across several themes. It will kind of address the impact of AI in almost all sectors, whether it's the key sectors of healthcare or education or agriculture and the allied sectors. And it will not only look into the positive impact, it will also look into the risks which AI poses. It will look into issues like future of work, how it impacts jobs, how it impacts productivity, how it can impact economic growth, how it can help various individuals in various sectors. It will also look into how the geopolitics will work out. It will look into how usage of AI in sectors like drones, in military use in AI. In fact, the recent conflict that we had in Operation Sindoor, we saw how AI was used in various ways, for analyzing data, for getting information, for monitoring social media, for ensuring that whichever country has an advantage. So AI will have multiple use cases and impact in various sectors. All these themes will be covered in the summit, and we also are trying to make it is that it's not that Ministry of Electronics and IT is organizing summit. It will be our summit. It's not that it will be a government summit. It will be a whole of India summit. So we will invite stakeholders from all sectors, whether they are not-for-profit, whether they are research institutions, academic institutions, startups, industry partners, multilateral bodies, to partner with us to host sessions across the themes. And there will be several events in the run up to the summit. So we do believe that we'll have some real tangible outcomes from the summit. Ministry of External Affairs is working with the countries of Global South in order to ensure that we have a good participation from countries of the Global South, and we are able to position India as the kind of leader which will enable adoption of AI in many of these countries.
So there's been a lot of interest from civil society and academia across the global south to engage with the summit in India. What do you have to say to them in terms of how best they can engage?
We will be welcoming them. We'll be wanting them to participate. In fact, we have reached out to many of these countries through MEA for identifying the key researchers, key stakeholders, key think tanks, key startups, industry, not-for-profits, even citizens of various countries who would want to join in this summit. We are identifying partners for hosting sessions. We are also identifying partners who can give us suggestions on the summit. So we are sure that we will have very active participation from many of these countries, and the issues related to adoption and impact of AI in the countries of the global south will be clearly highlighted and discussed.
So, what would a successful summit outcome look like for India?
Primarily, of course, the summits very often end up in declarations. But if we can come out with a governance framework, if we can come out with a policy with regard to, say, adoption of, say, 10 AI applications in, say, 50 countries, like that, if we can enable countries of the global south to access compute that is available, if a researcher in, say, Kenya or Haiti wants to access compute, if we can access that, if global community is able to pool together data sets, if they're able to pool together algorithms, if we have more open source models, then that would be like the real outcome of the summit.
Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. It's been a very enriching conversation, and we look forward to the very interesting things that the IndiaAI mission will continue to do over the year in the lead up to the AI summit.
Thank you, and look forward to you guys having joined the AI summit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We would love to hear your thoughts on the episode and your suggestions on what topics you would like us to cover. You can reach out to us through email or find us on our social media. We will link the details of these in the show notes. Lastly, we would like to thank National Law University Delhi for their support in creating the podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like and subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. We look forward to bringing you more content. This podcast was created by Center for Communication Governance at National Law University Delhi. This episode was edited by Gopika.